Chapter 26 1 Foot 1 Kiss. You know him? He saw Aaron Anderson. Benjamin Walton naturally thought of Nick Anderson. She realized she had lost her composure, shook her head, and let go of his arm. I don't know him. Would you like something to eat? All right. Her expression was no longer as natural as it was before. Come and sit with me, he said, leading her to an empty table in the corner. He continued, sit down. What would you like to eat? Whatever. He called the waiter and brought her some food. She lowered her head and ate slowly. Someone came to greet him, and he talked to someone. As he spoke, he lowered his head to look at her. She was secretly looking in Aaron Anderson's direction. He frowned. She clearly knew Aaron Anderson, there was no mistake. Someone had come to invite him over to talk business. He looked at her. I'll go sit for a while. I'll be back in a few minutes. You don't have to walk around. She nodded. All right. When he left, she sighed. When she looked up at Aaron Anderson again, she saw that he was also glaring at her. She frowned slightly and shifted her gaze away as she continued to eat. The more she tried to calm down, the louder the sounds around her became. At the table behind her, a few women were talking about her and William Walton. Someone said in disdain, where did this woman come from? Who knows, did you see that? Her arm was tightly holding onto Sanye. It was so close that it was almost hanging onto Sanye's body. She's too shameless. If there's no one here, she probably will pounce on Mr. Walton. That's right, I don't think Mr. Walton has any good impression of her. He always has a cold face, as if he's been disgusted by it. Young girls, they don't know where they are if they have a little beauty. Is Mr. Walton something that an unknown little character can covet? The women's discussion was so heated that they didn't notice when William Walton walked past them. He glanced sideways at the women. A bunch of reckless women. On the other side, Laura Green's hand that was holding onto her fork was trembling. This circle was always disgusting, but she actually knew about it. It wasn't that she hadn't seen Monica Anderson and her mother's hateful faces. However, being discussed in such a manner by a stranger, the displeasure in her heart wasn't fake. She put down her knife and fork and got up to leave the filthy place. However, at this moment, elegant music rang out and people began to enter the dance floor to dance one after another. William Walton walked in front of her and blocked her way. He put his hand on her waist and looked at her lovingly with a smile. What? You heard the dance music, and your heart is itching. You want to dance with me? He led her past the next table. His voice was loud, and several women heard him. Everyone kept quiet and looked at the two of them. She was surprised. Dance? What a joke. I can't dance. Then learn. I'll teach you. As he spoke, he helped her put her hands naturally around his neck, and he put his arms around her waist. He looked at her and said lovingly, I have a good way to help you learn how to dance quickly. In a while, if you step on me, I'll kiss you once. What? She looked at him blankly. What the hell was he doing? She wore high-heeled shoes, and her gait was unsteady. This posture almost caused her to exert all of her strength onto him. Naturally, he led her to the center of the dance floor. Their appearance immediately became the focus of attention. She was so nervous that she kicked him hard as soon as she took a step from side to side. He kept his promise. Before she could respond, he bent his head and kissed her lips. Chapter 27. Public Eye. Laura Green could hear nothing in the silence. There was no music to be heard, nor was there any discussion. All she could feel was the warm, wine-scented scent of his lips. As for him, he seemed to be unable to stop from kissing her. He had thought that the last time he had been infatuated with her lips, it was because he had never had a woman. He kissed her suddenly, unable to control himself. But this time, why? He couldn't explain it to himself. When the dance ended, she was led unsteadily out of the dance floor, her mind still in a daze. The gazes from the surroundings did not decrease, but she was not in the mood to pay attention to their gazes. She just couldn't understand why he would do that. Thinking that Aaron Anderson was still here, she suddenly felt embarrassed. She looked towards the corner where Aaron Anderson was at just now. Aaron Anderson had left some time ago. She didn't see Aaron Anderson, but she saw Nick Anderson with a single glance. Nick Anderson, who was standing at the same spot as Aaron Anderson, looked at her in disappointment. Her heart tightened with shame. After a moment, Nick Anderson turned around and left. Laura Green heaved a sigh of relief with a distressed expression on her face. Her every move was watched by William Walton. Thus, he could clearly see her anxiety and restlessness. He also saw Nick Anderson's expression. He curled his lips. It seemed that this Laura Green did indeed have some sort of secret with Anderson family. Miss Green, your complexion isn't very good. Have you just lost your breath? She glared at him with some complaint. Why are you doing this? What for? Kiss you. As I said before, that's the rule that teaches you to dance. I didn't say I wanted to learn to dance, but you followed me onto the dance floor. Damn it. She really wanted to take off those shoes that she couldn't control. She let out a breath. Forget it. I don't want to argue with you about what has already happened. It's irreversible. I'm a little tired and want to go back. I'm also tired. Let's go together. He put his arm around her waist and walked out. She struggled slightly. He smiled. You'd better be honest if you don't want me to carry you out. She stopped immediately. She was naturally taken out by him. Why are you so domineering? There's no other way. Ever since I was young, I've been used to being domineering. That's why people say you're bad. What does it have to do with me if others say that I'm good or bad? His words caused a ding in her head. That's right. What was so important about the me that others spoke of, whether it was good or bad? His words were inexplicably to her liking. The two of them came out of the banquet hall, and once they turned a corner, they saw Nick Anderson, who was standing by the window and smoking. She paused. Nick Anderson put out the cigarette. She lowered her head as if she didn't see him, and followed William Walton to the elevator door. She quickly pressed the button for the elevator down. At this moment, the elevator was slowly descending from the 26th floor. Nick Anderson stood by the window for a moment, then walked over. Laura Green was slightly nervous when she saw this scene from the corner of her eyes. She only prayed that her brother would walk over as if he didn't know her. However, it was the opposite. Nick Anderson stopped beside her. Laura, come with me. He took her by the wrist and turned away. Laura Green, who was being pulled by him, took 2 steps towards his side. However, before she could take a step forward, her other hand was grabbed by William Walton. CEO Nick Anderson, snatching my girlfriend in front of me. Do you think I'm dead? Chapter 28. William Walton versus Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson's gaze met William Walton. There seemed to be sparks of fire between their eyes. Laura Green's heart thumped wildly. She looked at Nick Anderson and then at William Walton, weighing the pros and cons in her heart. After a moment, she pulled out the hand William Walton was holding. However, William Walton's grip was too tight, so she wasn't able to succeed. Sensing Laura Green's actions, anger rose in William Walton's heart. Under the situation where she had to choose between the two, she actually wanted to get rid of him. Could this woman be courting death? With a strong pull, he pulled Laura Green towards him. Laura Green, who was wearing heels, staggered into his arms. He smiled evilly and firmly held her waist, which was pouncing towards him, and looked at Nick Anderson provocatively. Nick Anderson's eyes were filled with hostility. William Walton wasn't afraid. He lowered his head to look at Laura Green, who was in his arms, and naturally kissed her on the forehead. Kid, you're in a hurry just like that? Laura Green's face instantly turned red. Seeing her expression, William Walton lovingly pinched her cheek. Why are you blushing again? You're so cute, I won't be able to control myself. Nick Anderson gritted his teeth. Laura? Laura Green felt a chill run down her spine as she struggled to leave William Walton's arms. The elevator door just opened. She clenched her fist and said with a trembling voice, Mr. Walton, can you wait for me in the car? I have a few words with CEO Nick Anderson. I'll be going down very soon. There was a pleading look on her face as she hoped that William Walton wouldn't find trouble with her. After all, she didn't want to bring trouble to her brother. William Walton raised his eyebrows. The unhappiness he added to them tonight was quite heavy. He rubbed her hair with satisfaction. Seeing that you're so cute, I'll agree. You should come down earlier, otherwise... She interrupted. 10 minutes. William Walton took off his jacket and covered Laura Green with it. After giving Nick Anderson a cold glance, he turned around and walked into the elevator. The moment the elevator door closed, Nick Anderson grabbed her wrist and walked towards the staircase in front of them. However, because it was really inconvenient for her to wear high heels, she was directly dragged before falling to the ground. Nick Anderson's heart ached, and he hurriedly leaned forward to help her up. She pitifully said, Big brother, I don't know how to wear high heels. You walk slower. Nick Anderson was displeased. You don't know how to wear high heels, yet you're still wearing them. But he turned quickly and helped her up, and led her to the stairwell. Nick Anderson said with a cold face, What happened? She stood by the wall like a guilty schoolboy, looking down at her toes in a penitent way. I'm sorry, she said. I don't want to hear your apology. I want to know what happened. Laura, why are you with him? Didn't you say that you are just his younger brother's tutor? But what do I see tonight? I'm his little brother's home tutor, and accompanying here tonight is the reward for saving me once in the bar. As for the scene you saw, she bit her lip. I don't know why he would do that to me. She really didn't know. However, Nick Anderson didn't think so. When he thought of the scene just now, he couldn't help but feel infuriated. Ever since he was young, he didn't protect Laura because he wanted to help that ferocious wolf. He took a deep breath and said, All right, I won't bother with what happened tonight. Promise me that you will immediately quit your tutoring job and draw a clear line between you and him. Chapter 29, I Hate You. I'm afraid I can't agree to your request for the time being. She looked at him. William Walton's little brother has less than a month until his college entrance exam. Now that he has to switch home tutors, it's not easy for the newcomers to get along with him. I've already taken their money. I will compensate you with the money. As for what kind of a new tutor William Walton's little brother is getting along with, that is not something you should consider. A person like William Walton is not someone you can mess with. Laura, William Walton is a wolf that eats people without even spitting out their bones. With a person like him, other than a moment of happiness, you can't get anything else. Take advantage of the fact that you love him deeply and break off with him immediately. What was a moment of happiness? He didn't think that she had that kind of relationship with William Walton, right? Laura Green felt a little uncomfortable. Big brother, what do you take me for? Laura, I understand your personality. If you don't want to, then he won't be able to have an affair with you tonight. The reason you didn't resist was because you were attracted to him. Didn't you say that you would never repeat Aunt Green's mistakes in your life? Then stay away from him. I'm doing this for your own good. You have to be obedient. Okay? Laura Green clenched her fist. It was clear that she did not want William Walton to be hostile to Nick Anderson, so she did not do it. Yet, she turned to go. Nick Anderson grabbed her wrist. Laura. Enough. Laura Green looked at him with a grumbling look. Since you don't believe me, why are you standing here and talking to me about something? Your surname is Anderson and my surname is Green, so you don't need to feel that I have disgraced your Anderson family. She shook off his hand and pushed open the door to the stairwell. Seeing her reaction, Nick Anderson realized that his words hurt her. He hurried after her, but she was already in the elevator. He wanted to continue his chase, but a familiar face came out of the banquet hall and greeted him. He looked in the direction of the elevator before walking over to his acquaintance. When she got out of the elevator, she twisted her ankle. She was in pain, so she kneeled on the floor and rubbed her ankle. These damn shoes. She took off her shoes and limped to the door of the hotel. William Walton's car was parked in front of the door, but after she looked at the car, she walked around the car and headed in the opposite direction. William Walton, who was in the car, frowned when he saw her limp away barefooted while holding her shoes. He opened the door and got out. Hearing the sound of the car door closing, she endured the pain and began to run. When she reached the green strip to the right of the hotel, she was overtaken by him. William Walton grabbed her arm. He looked at her, which was full of anger. What are you running for? What's wrong with your foot? Laura Green threw her shoes at his feet and shouted angrily. William Walton, how did I offend you? Why did you treat me like this and why did you kiss me? Do you think that because you have money, all the women in the world will follow you and do whatever you want? I tell you, don't be so arrogant. I hate you. I hope that you can keep your distance from me in the future. She pulled his clothes off her shoulders, threw them at him, and turned to leave. William Walton's face darkened. He picked her up and walked back to the car. Laura Green struggled. What are you doing? Put me down. William Walton ignored her and directly threw her into the car, then closed the car door. After successfully angering him, she still wanted him to let her go? She was dreaming. C30 barefooted. She had thought that barefoot people were not afraid of people wearing shoes. However, after being controlled into the car by him, she finally understood that William Walton was the one who didn't wear shoes. He held her firmly in the back seat, ignoring the embarrassment of the driver in front of him. If you dare move again, I don't mind making love with you here. You, Mr. Carter, drive home. Yes, Mr. Walton. Laura Green gritted her teeth. William Walton, move aside. The driver's hand shook again. He had been in the Walton family for a long time, and Miss Green was the first person who dared to call Mr. Walton by his name. William Walton smiled. William Walton? These two words were something that he hadn't heard of for a long time. Mr. Carter, stop the car. Mr. Carter pulled to the side of the road. William Walton said, You got off work? Yes, Mr. Walton. Carter pushed the door open and hurriedly got off the car. There were only 2 people left in the car, and Laura Green was scared out of her wits. You? What are you doing? He shouldn't be doing anything to her here, right? Making love to you. He lowered his head and began to kiss her on the lips. Her head was in control, and he kissed her for 3 minutes before she broke away. She shouted, Let go of me. William Walton, you bastard. William Walton looked at her and pinched her chin. If you scream again, I'll let you go. Am I your cat or dog? If you ask me to call you that, then I will. So, if you're not willing to, then I'll just treat it as you inviting me further in. Meow. A good girl did not suffer losses. Although she didn't know what William Walton wanted her to learn, she decided to learn to meow cats first. After she shouted, William Walton, who was on her body, looked at her for 3 seconds before he burst out laughing. You? Why are you laughing? If you want me to scream, I will scream. You can leave now, right? I never had a cat. What I told you to call me was my name. She was stunned for a moment before her face turned red. William Walton was still smiling. Laura Green thought it was embarrassing. Seeing him laughing like that, she shouted, William Walton, you've really done too much. William Walton stopped smiling and lightly pinched her chin. Very good. In the future, when there are no outsiders, I will allow you to call me by my name. This is your privilege. She was dumbfounded again. This privilege, what was the use of her coming here? But at this moment, William Walton had already gotten off her body. Laura Green sat up straight and adjusted the clothes that he pressed down on her, almost revealing half of her dress. Somehow, she felt as if she had survived a disaster. This indirectly confirmed Nick Anderson's words. He was a wolf that ate people without spitting out their bones. When Benjamin's college entrance exam was over, she would definitely never have anything to do with him again. There were still 24 days left, and she had to endure it. William Walton opened the car door and got off, getting into the passenger seat. He looked back at her. Come here and drive home. The word go home once again inexplicably stabbed at her heart. She liked the word home, but she didn't have one. Seeing that she did not move, William Walton spoke again. What are you still standing there for? You didn't enjoy enough just now, and you still want me to do it again? She looked at him with a wronged expression. I can't drive. William Walton seemed to have thought of something, and took out his phone to call Mr. Carter. You come back. After hanging up, he returned to the back row, took her foot, and put it on his lap to check. She looked at his profile, and for some inexplicable reason, a feeling she had never experienced before slipped through her heart.